Yeah, very nice to see everyone in such great numbers. Many colleagues I haven't seen for a very long time, definitely not for real, sometimes only virtually, but also many new colleagues from Erasmus to me. I'm very new, I'm a very new Erasmian, so to speak. Only from September onwards, I joined the Erasmus University with my research team, which I gladly present to you. And I'm going to add a bit to that conceptual confusion that was just mentioned, because the chair I'm holding at Erasmus is actually a combination of social enterprise with institutions for collective action. And as I will hopefully make clear to you by the end of this talk, you should consider social enterprises as the goal and the institution for collective action as one of the potential means to achieve it. With the research team, we're currently with 6, but I'm also abusing this talk a bit to point you towards the availability of even 5 job positions that are currently open, 3 PhD positions, 1 postdoc and a research officer, and some of them close by the 15th of this month. So if you have any good students or you want to apply yourself, please check it online via the website underneath. And imagine you start working at our research team in Rotterdam. I think you will find a very multidisciplinary research group with people from various backgrounds, from history, anthropology, environmental sciences, management, global business, etc. And you'd be working together with quite a few other universities across Europe and across the world. But what I personally find very important as an academic is that we do not stay within our ivory tower, but we also reach out to the many societal stakeholders that could benefit from our academic knowledge, from local municipalities to, well, ministries, but of course also companies, network organizations. We try to do so within the Netherlands, but of course also elsewhere in the world through also several international organizations. So if you're interested in any of the work we're doing, please visit the website. And I'm going to explain a bit more in depth what we really are trying to do here. And I'll start with a very basic introduction to the term institution for collective action. It's a mainly academic term, and I'll be giving you some synonyms over in the course of this talk, which might ring a louder bell to you. But the term institution for collective action is very closely connected to the work by Elinor Ostrom, the Nobel Prize winner in economics in 2009. She works on commons. Commons is also a very popular term these days. And well, the more academic term you could use for that is, or the more general neutral term is, an institution for collective action. What does it stand for? Well, it starts from the fact that people start working together as a collectivity because they have a joint goal, a joint interest in a specific service or product. And in order to use that, and they create and manage it together, and they do so as a collectivity of resources. So instead of making a group and each have your own part of the resource and go about your own way, they decide that it's more economically, more interesting, more beneficial for society if they do this in a joint effort, and they create a collectivity of resources. Now, when you put a group of people together with a collection of resources, you likely get what is called, in academic terms, a social dilemma. The question how to choose between individual short-term gain versus long-term collective gain. A collective can be the group of people, but it can also be the society at large. In order to solve that, they start an institution. They set up norms, values, and on the basis of that, rules. And they do so in order to make sure that the group of members does not overharvest the resource, that the resource is adapted to the needs of the members. I'm not going to say too much about this model, which we use to study the resilience of institutions for collective action, but finding what makes these institutions resilient is really what we are interested in, and not just today or in the past 50 years. We also go back 1,000 years in history. But for today, I will focus it on what's happening in Europe, and in particular the Netherlands. And what I'm showing you here is to start with a number of synonyms that are often used for this type of organization: citizen collectivity, or a community-based social enterprise is another term. Now, what we see across the Netherlands, but this actually on the right-hand side, you can also see a map of Europe, is that all over we see citizens taking up the initiative to build their own institutions for collective action. They join together to create an alternative to market and state offer in care, for example. In the Netherlands, that's a very big movement with hundreds and hundreds of care collectivities, but it also happens in short chain agriculture, that's the middle map. And definitely it's a big thing all over Europe in terms of community-based energy production with, for example, solar panels, but also windmills being set up by citizens. The goals they strive for, on the one hand, individual, they go for fulfilling their own needs in care and energy and food, but also societal. And the energy cooperatives have the aim to set up a renewable energy cooperative because they find that important for society as a whole to battle, for instance, climate change. The means are an institution for collective action, and in legal terms, they usually use the cooperative as a form to function as a collectivity. Now, apart from these, we also see other developments, for example, in insurance, whereby the Netherlands, for example, has set a whole network of the so-called bread funds, whereby people who are self-employed look for new forms of mutual insurance, like those that started in the 19th century. It's actually a worldwide development right now. But we also see this in the virtual world, so to speak. There's a new development, and actually a workshop starting by Damien, you can see there, organized by Damien in another hour, on the topic of platform cooperatives. Platform cooperatives as a way to offer an alternative to people who rely on gigs for their income, short one-off jobs, without having to rely on the more capitalist platforms that do not offer them the secured income and good working conditions. So we see this popping up all over the world. And as I said, usually in the form of cooperatives. Sometimes also a hybrid in the sense that they combine this with another legal form, like a foundation, to make their functioning possible. Now, one of the things that we've been doing is tracing back the growth of this cooperative movement across the Netherlands and Europe. And you see a bit of an outdated figure there, but it shows you that, well, already from before the economic crisis in 2008, we see this growth in new cooperatives in the Netherlands. So it's not really crisis related there. It's actually going on for quite a bit of time already. They usually have a local focus, but there's also initiatives in the Netherlands. There's one specific one called the regional cooperative, the region cooperative, which actually combines stakeholders like municipality or hotel representative to develop regions. So it's not only cooperatives of individuals, but also of organizations. Now, what are cooperatives? We could also set up a different talk about that, but we don't have that much time. But the bottom line is that those who are the stakeholders are actually also the members and the shareholders. So there's an overlap there. Now, there are several reasons also to have a very close look at cooperatives before we actually call them social enterprises. They're not necessarily an entire overlap. As I will show you in a minute, there's also pseudo cooperatives, they're called, depending on the legal context in which you find them. I'll explain it in a moment. But the bottom line, next to the more economic and legal organization of the cooperative, is that it is based in principle, I've stressed in principle, on a number of core values, so the ICA principles, the International Cooperative Alliance principles. And one of them is concern for the community, meaning that you do not just set up a cooperative for your own profit as a member, but also you take into account the effect it has on the community. That still doesn't mean that profit is not as important. A profit for the society is more important than for the people who act as members. But from the 1990s, more or less onwards, we see in many parts of the world emerging a subform, the social cooperative. It's actually sort of parallel movement to the development of the social enterprise worldwide. You see the cooperative in another form, whereby there's a limit to what the members as individuals as members can take as a profit, often, for example, 6%. And there's also a specific limit to what you can take back when you go out of the cooperative. And the goals of the societal purpose are definitely leading in these cooperatives. And in that sense, you could actually place these cooperatives, and just referring to the figure of Dufourny that Philip just showed you. You of course can have them in the bottom left-hand side of the triangle, but when they have a social component and they act as a social enterprise, you place them a bit higher up over there. Now, of course, there's it can be a big difference between the legal form and the organizational objectives. I mean, there can be quite a bit of friction in between that. And for that, it's actually really interesting to look at two countries that are, well, closely connected to each other. I'm currently in Belgium, that's where I live, but I work in the Netherlands. And I'm often confronted with the two different worlds when it comes down to the legal and the practical execution of what a cooperative is. In the Netherlands, the legal form of a cooperative is extremely loose, extremely flexible, allowing also cooperatives who really do not have any interest in the International Cooperative Alliance principles to call themselves a cooperative. Huawei, for example, is a cooperative in the Netherlands. Very easy, close to Schiphol, you register it and you have some interesting fiscal arrangements. However, there's no specific form for the social enterprise, although there are several people striving towards that. It's already it already drew a lot of attention from politicians, and currently there's interest to form a new form of social enterprise, a new legal form for the social enterprise, the BVM, and M stands for maatschappelijk society. Now,
sorry
yes,
to
have to be very quick. Yeah.
Could you perhaps go quickly to the question?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to, so the difference there is with Belgium that there's in a recent development, cooperatives are going to be controlled again according to the ICA principles, and the social enterprise will be a sub-form of the cooperative, a completely different situation. Now I was going to, the questions I have to you to think about in a moment are related to the potential that the cooperative format could have, the social cooperative format could have for social enterprises in the future. In the Netherlands, for example, many social cooperatives are not considered as social enterprises, but in principle, they are. And making that visible could help to see more opportunities. For example, in terms of funding, can involving citizens in these types of social enterprises help to create a sort of continuous crowdfunding and not just at the startup of these social enterprises in that way? Can it help to, for example, tell more people when they are both consumer and owner of the social enterprise? Can it help to spread the message they're believing in as consumers and as owners? Can it help to spread that message more easily? But also, does it have an effect on citizens when they become a member and owner of a social cooperative / social enterprise to actually act in a more socially responsible, a more pro-social way when they are acting outside of the cooperative? There's some evidence pro, but also some evidence against that this might be the case. So I would really like you to think about the potential effect the cooperative format as a governance form can have on the social enterprise and its future. Of course, there's a lot of things we could discuss also about the future of social enterprises in a cooperative form related to changes that Corona has brought. I'm going to skip that. And I'm going to draw at the end your attention to two websites you might be interested in. One is the Institute for Collective Action website, and the other is a Collective Power Up website, which is a platform for citizens collectivities we're building. And just to finish off, these are the questions we would like you to address in the upcoming World Café.